Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Well, it appears that the United States government, the Department of Defense, is going to re-review the case involving the giant pyramids flying over United States warships in 2019. Now, as a lot of you might remember, Scott Bray, the Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence, stated last year during a congressional hearing that that these objects were just drones, apparently. But now it looks like the tune has been changed slightly, according to a new report from Liberation Times. Liberation Times, by the way, is an online news source which focuses on UAP and UAP disclosure. And if you haven't seen this site, I highly recommend that you check it out. And anyway, we're going to go through this article written by Christopher Sharp. And again, Christopher Sharp does a really good job with these stories. And this is from May 8th. It says, "Case not closed. The Department of Defense to review 2019 West Coast UFOs which harassed United States warships." And according to the United States Department of Defense, data related to unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAP, that swarmed U.S. warships off the West Coast in 2019 is set to be reviewed by its All-domain Anomaly Resolution Office, and its origin has not definitely been determined. Now, that's different from what we heard before. I mean, of course, as a lot of people remember, documentary filmmaker and UFO investigator Jeremy Corbell had leaked a video showing these pyramid-shaped objects hovering over a warship a couple of years back. And then you had a bunch of debunkers come out and said, well, no, that's just they're just triangular in shape because of this effect called the bokeh effect, which is caused by the aperture inside the camera lens, and that it could have been stars or just conventional aircraft. And although people like Corbell has insisted that's not the case, and that there was hundreds of these things floating around over the ships, and it was unexplained from witnesses that had seen them. And so it was more than just one of these objects. But anyway, continuing with this article, it says, speaking specifically about triangular-looking craft filmed from the USS Russell in July 2019, Pentagon spokesperson Susan Goh told Liberation Times, as noted by Scott Bray, Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence, during a congressional hearing in May 2022, the UAPTF was reasonably confident that the triangles correlated to unmanned aerial systems, or UAS, in the area, given that the triangles appeared in videos from different occasions where U.S. Navy assets observed a number of small UAS nearby. As with all UAP cases it inherited, Arrow is reviewing the associated data of past cases within its newly developed analytic framework. And then it continues here. It says, although reasonably confident that the triangular-looking objects correlated with unmanned aerial systems, or UAS, in the area, Goh was unable to confirm the origin or controllers of the craft, noting that the sources or origin cannot be definitively determined. These triangles may be a combination of known sources, including UAS, and Arrow is using its newly implemented analytic framework to definitively determine the sources and peer review the results before officially closing the case. So I think this is a good thing that they're actually looking into it again, that the Department of Defense is saying that, okay, this isn't a case closed yet. It's still open, and we still don't know what these objects were, these triangular pyramid-shaped objects floating over these warships back in 2019. We still don't know what they are. Are we going to get any? Are they going to come out in the end and say, well, we don't know what they are, and they might be extraterrestrial? I don't think that's going to be the case. I just don't think that's going to be the case. But anyway, we'll get into that later. Anyway, continuing here, it says, the DoD's comments follow testimony from an eyewitness who served on board the USS Paul Hamilton during the UAP events, and who told journalist and filmmaker Jeremy Corbell that the objects did not appear to originate from the Hong Kong registered cargo vessel, the Bass Strait, which the New York Post asserted. The Bass Strait crew, did deny they were the source, and they also never landed or launched them. The eyewitness added, we never saw them land or take off the Bass Strait. So there was this cargo vessel that was nearby at the time that people like the New York Post tries to claim that debunkers try to claim that these were just drones that were flown off this Hong Kong registered craft. But this eyewitness is saying they never saw these things take off from any ship, and they never saw them land. They never saw them do any of those kind of things. Anyway, continuing here, it says the DoD's new office dedicated to investigating UAP, the Arrow, will be reviewing the incidents using its analytical framework. However, it remains uncertain whether this and similar cases can be resolved. Sean Kirkpatrick, the director of Arrow, has acknowledged that he lacks Title 50 authorities, which limits his access to the nation's full intelligence collection potential. That's interesting. We have this congressional Arrow office, but they're not allowed. They're not even allowed to look at all the stuff that the military collects with regard to UAP. Continuing here, it says, during a recent public hearing held by the Senate's Subcommittee on Emerging Threats and Capability, Kirkpatrick confirmed that he is currently operating under Title 10 authorities. There are some authorities that we need, so he's operating under Title 10 authorities, which gives him some access, but not full access. We currently are operating under Title 10 authorities, but we have had good relationships across the other agencies. This means that he can access information from DoD and military operations, but not from intelligence agencies, intelligence activities, and covert action. Without access to such information, Dr. Kirkpatrick's capacity to positively identify the origin and controllers of UAP may be limited. For instance, he does not have access to National Reconnaissance or National Geospatial Intelligence Agency collection systems, which could potentially support identification efforts through use of satellites. So there you go. So there's a lot of stuff that Arrow, and Kirkpatrick, they just won't have access to. So again, how will, I mean, now the Department of Defense is saying that Arrow is going to be looking at this and trying to come up with a determination. But how would it be able to come up with a determination? I guess if you're not given all the data, you don't have access to it because you just don't have those authorities. And then continuing here, he says, during the hearing, Kirkpatrick stated that he is unable to reach defendable conclusions and close cases. And this is a direct quote from that hearing. While a large number of cases in our holdings remain technically unresolved, this is primarily due to a lack of data associated with those cases. Without sufficient data, we are unable to reach defendable conclusions that meet the high scientific standards we set for resolution, and I will not close a case that I cannot defend the conclusions of. And then the article continues here. It says, this is why 189 cases can be initially characterized as balloon-like or UAS-like entities, but cannot be positively identified as such. Unlike normal drones observed by naval personnel, the eyewitness who spoke with Corbell explained they would depart on different bearings than that they would come in from. So this person who was actually there, who actually saw this. Now, this isn't some. There was none of these debunkers who claimed that these were just camera effects, bokeh effect. These pyramid-shaped objects. These people who weren't there, who were not witnesses to it, and they're just looking at video and just making proclamations, basically. And not giving all the facts in their analysis, right? Those people, they're wrong. But this person here, this eyewitness, said that these things would come from different bearings and then depart a different way. So if they were coming from a Chinese ship, a Chinese vessel, for instance, well, why didn't they go back that way? Well, they just took off in a different direction then. Anyway, continuing here, it says, Susan Goh confirmed to Liberation Times that the objects filmed from the USS Russell appeared triangular, both due to the angle of observation and optical system used. And here's a direct quote from Goh. It says, as Mr. Bray also noted during his testimony, we can confirm that the objects observed in this case appeared to the viewer as triangular shapes due to the angle of observation and optical system used. Okay, well, they're triangular, and there's a whole bunch of them out there floating over these ships, over this warship, and that's not, and they don't know where they came from or where they went. And so how can you make a determination? How can you say that they're just mere drones flown off some Chinese cargo ship? That's absurd. There's not enough information, obviously. There's just not enough information. And continuing here, it says, Goh's statement confirms that there may not be a single explanation as to why the objects appeared triangular and cannot be solely explained by the bokeh effect, which some commentators have suggested. However, the analysis from the debunkers of the video will still be considered. Goh also confirmed that the alignment of stars and planets will be reviewed. So some people were saying that, the debunkers were saying that these objects were just stars. I mean, I don't see how they could have been stars. One of the objects was blinking, and it did not seem like it could have been something that was natural. It didn't seem like a natural blink. It seemed like it had to be something that was manufactured by some intelligence, whether it be man-made or extraterrestrial or whatever. Anyway, continuing here, it says, as part of the analytic framework, this is a direct quote from Susan Go, as part of the analytic framework, the source of the lights are currently being reviewed against the star/planet alignment at the time, air traffic, and other likely UAS systems. As we have stated previously, there is not one solution for all UAP. Let me just stop there for a second. I don't think there's going to be a solution for this case. I don't see how there ever could be. I mean, I don't. When the debunkers came out and said it was a bokeh effect, I thought maybe that could be the case, but again, there's just not enough information there. You have to go by not only the images, but also from what the witnesses say. So in the world of UFOs, it doesn't seem to matter whatever witnesses say. Right? Did you ever notice that? Like if anything else, right? Witnesses play a key part in any kind of court actions. Right, but in the world of UFOs, if you have video and you have physical trace evidence and you have some witnesses, the witnesses really mean nothing in the world of UFOs for whatever reason. Continuing here, it says, it may be a matter of discretion whether the UAP, including those of a triangular shape, exhibited unusual flight characteristics or performance capabilities. The inability to determine the source of objects that are harassing U.S. warships, whether they are Chinese, Russian, commercial, or less conventional in nature, is indicative of an alarming gap in domain awareness. The objects are currently labeled as UAS by the DoD, which were their original classification by those serving on board the ships which witnessed the events in 2019. One witness serving on board the USS Omaha, whose responsibility was to designate the objects, now questions the classification, commenting, "The classification of UAS is now inappropriate because it was never confirmed." So to say outright, like Bray indicated during that hearing, that UAS. That's inappropriate because nobody ever confirmed that. Again, that was, to me, when I remember that hearing from last year, from May of 2022, I remember after that, it seemed like they were just basing their comments on proclamations made by debunker Mick West. I mean, that's what it seemed like where they were getting their information from. I mean, that's absolutely absurd. I mean, how could the Department of Defense arrive at that conclusion on information from some rando on the internet, some video game programmer? Anyway, continuing here, it says, Liberation Times has learned that some politicians within the United States Congress are increasingly frustrated as many questions remain unanswered about this and other UAP events. And it may only be a matter of time until Congress escalates its efforts through another public hearing and new drafts of the Intelligence and National Defense Authorization Acts. Such efforts may target alleged illegal UAP-related special access programs, which may provide less than prosaic answers. Well, that's another great article from Christopher Sharp, and I highly recommend it. If you haven't checked out this Liberation Times site, if you're interested in this subject, this is one of those places you need to be checking out on a regular basis. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back. We're back. Now we're talking about this, the DoD to review these West Coast UFOs from 2019 again. They seemed to write it off last year. Now they're talking, well, we don't know. Those pyramid-shaped objects that were leaked, the video that was leaked to Jeremy Corbell a couple years back. Well, I guess the whole thing is I don't expect to hear. I mean, I think the end answer that you're going to probably get out of this is that they don't know what this is. I mean, how I mean, you're just not going to have an answer. I mean, you're never going to have a definitive answer to this. You're just not. I mean, they would have had it already. I mean, the United States has the best, the most advanced military in the world, and they still don't. I mean, we're talking 4 years ago, and they don't have any answer. They didn't know what it was then, and they still don't know what it is now. They tried to explain it away last year, but that wasn't good enough, obviously. And it doesn't matter. The debunkers could say all they want. They're just making proclamations. The correct answer is, I don't know what this is. That's the correct answer. I don't know what it is, and we don't have enough information. All we have is this video data, and also witness statements. Witness statements seem to suggest that these things were moving in ways and doing things that we just don't have. We're not aware of these kind of things. We don't have these kind of. If they're drones, okay, how come we don't have stuff like this? Where was their base? What was the base they were flying from? Where was it located? There's no answers to it. So I mean, if it was, that you would be able to identify that, but they were unable to identify it. Witnesses are stating that these objects, if they were coming from that Chinese warship, well, then how come they didn't fly back to it? They took off in different directions, all different directions. They would come in one direction and fly off in another direction. So I think the bottom line is we're not going to have an answer to this. But see, again, I think the issue with this is I think it's wrong to focus on a case like this. Again, to me, it all boils down to this. It's almost like we're being shown a shiny object. Oh, we still don't know what this object is out there that was out there on the West Coast in 2019. These objects that were floating over warships, right? The military's still trying to figure out what it is. Really, what does it really matter when you have, again, like I talk about all the time, like it's like we're just spinning our wheels. It just is a shiny object. Hey, look at the shiny object. We don't know what this object is out there. When meanwhile, there's a control group in the background, in the shadows, that knows everything. That might not know what this is, but has evidence to the extraterrestrial reality. It's like we're being given this instead of what we really should what the government should really be providing. It's just like, again, Arrow, to me, all this nonsense, this lip service from the federal government on these things. It's all like a dog and pony show, because it's just to fool people. It's to bring you off track. There are a lot of people in the UFO community. I'm glad that Arrow's still looking at this. Yeah, but at the same time, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, in the end, what are they going to come up with? I mean, they might come up. They might actually decide at the end, well, yeah, it is something prosaic. That's what we're going to hang our hat on some conventional object. Or they're going to come out and say there's just not enough data. We don't know what it was, and there's no answer. Then they're not going to say. They're never going to say, well, we think it's extraterrestrial. How could they say it's extraterrestrial? I can't say it's extraterrestrial. Nobody could say it's extraterrestrial. You'll never be able to say it's extraterrestrial unless the thing landed on the ship. And alien beings got out, and a whole bunch of crewmen took a whole bunch of video and pictures, and then brought the aliens back to Congress and said, yeah, this is what was out there that night. That's the only way you're ever going to prove that this is extraterrestrial. You're never going to get anywhere with this stuff. This is all just, again, it's like a dog and pony show, and it means nothing in the end. Because we're never going to get anywhere with this. Because meanwhile, this is just to quell the masses, to keep them quiet. The shiny object. Hey, see this, you dum dums out there? See this? We're still looking into this one. Maybe it ain't maybe it wasn't a bokeh effect. See this? But meanwhile, then you forget about what's really going on behind the scenes. Is that there's been this secret control group in the shadows for all these decades, studying crashed saucers and alien bodies, and they have all kinds of data and information and film and proof that could end this debate, and they're keeping that to themselves, because they're this, again, it's almost like what happened a couple months back with the Chinese spy balloon and those objects that were prosaic objects that were shot down. It was almost like, see, then the media latches onto it and says, yeah, it's just see, all these UFOs, a lot of them, you realize now, it looks like it's all just spy balloons and stuff like that. That's what people have been seeing over all these years. They're a bunch of dummies, I mean, it's just this stupid game. Because let me tell you something. There is an extraterrestrial presence on this planet, and it doesn't matter what... It doesn't matter if the government wants to continue playing this game. There's a lot of us out there that know, and we're just sick of it. And all we could do is just tell the world that we're sick of it. But it doesn't matter, because there's a lot of people out there that aren't going to accept what people like me say. Right? They're just not going to accept it because it's just. Who am I? I don't have the absolute end-all proof to present. Neither does a lot of these other UFO researchers, but we do know that there's something here. It's just common sense at this time. There's all these witnesses over the years. There's all this film and footage and video. There's, it's there's all this documentation. There's all these people that were in the military that have stepped forward, that are stepping forward, and but again, they're not coming forward with the absolute end all proof. That's because a secret control group is sitting on it all. They have control over this narrative in the end. So it doesn't matter what anybody says, and so they can sit back and they're laughing at you right now, showing you shiny objects. I mean, not the people that are listening to this podcast in particular, but the rest of the world, the dumb media, the media that just plays along with this, because they're too lazy to investigate this properly. And unfortunately, all we have are independent sites like Liberation Times that do investigations and contact people in the Pentagon and talk to them to get comments. People like John Greenwald, who files Freedom of Information Act requests on a regular basis. But again, I don't think even that's going to ever net any kind of end-all proof. How could it possibly? I mean, if all the information is sitting somewhere within all the good data, all the good top secret classified documentations is being held by a private organization, which it's starting to seem to be, based on different evidence that's been presented over the decades, like the Wilson Davis memo and research conducted by Jacques Vallée, that a lot of this information related to the recovery of extraterrestrial craft and beings is actually handed over to weapons manufacturers to study and try to reverse engineer. Well, and it's out of the hands of the government, and the Pentagon instead acts as muscle, as bodyguard to these groups. Then how you could file all the Freedom of Information Act requests in the world. It's not going to matter. You're never going to get what we need to end this debate. But you never know. There might be some other things that might happen as time goes on. There might be, there are some people right now who are, again, I talked about Ross Coulthart. James Fox says he's been talking, filmmaker James Fox has been talking to somebody that states that they could help prove this. The whistleblowers. I mean, we're talking about whistleblowers meeting with Congress. I don't know. How do you get them to finally tear the lid off? I don't know how whistleblowers themselves could, unless one of the whistleblowers would have to be embedded deep within this secret control group. And I'm not sure if that's the case. I guess we'll find out in time. There are some people right now who are enthusiastic that things are coming down the pike that will change this whole thing and open people's eyes. I hope so. I hope that's the case. But again, I just don't know. How could any of us really know for sure until we see it, until it actually happens? I think, this is my personal opinion, what I think should happen. If there are whistleblowers out there who are aware of the secret control group and know of who are the people actually that comprise this, these what they're called gatekeepers. Who are the gatekeepers? What are the actual names of the gatekeepers? If you had whistleblowers that come to Congress, right, and actually tell Congress under oath, tell congressional committees under oath in public, right, that they are aware of these reverse engineering programs of extraterrestrial craft. Not only that, though, but actually name names of the people who are controlling it, people who are considered gatekeepers. Name those names, and then have Congress bring those people in to testify. Subpoena those people in. Subpoena the actual people that comprise the secret control group. Have them testify. Again, we wouldn't even need all of this arrow stuff, right? We wouldn't need this nonsense. We would just get right to the heart of it this way. If you had actual whistleblowers go to Congress, testify about what they know, and then name names. If they name names and then bring those people forward, the people that are in the control group, to testify under oath what's going on behind the scenes. What are they sitting on? What secrets have they been given? Like, where did this authority come in the first place? I'd like to know. Well, some of my questions is, who authorized this situation where only a certain elite group of people from some weapons manufacturers were permitted to study this and look at this and be aware of this reality? How come they were who authorized that? How did that happen? I'd like to know. I'd like to have those questions answered. Out of curiosity. I mean, this has been going on a long time now. But that's where I think we need to go. So hopefully some of these whistleblowers do start coming forward and start giving names. Start giving names. That's what I want to know. I want to hear some names. Now, who are the people running the show? Who are the people pulling the strings behind the scenes for all this time? And then maybe we can get to the end of this whole ridiculous charade. Anyway, until next time.